Yeah, I had a lot of trouble getting on
That's weird.
2 or 3 times.
That's very strange. I wonder why.
No, not much.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Looking
No,
great.
I
And who's with us at 2593?
That's me,
And who's me?
Phyllis.
Phyllis. Great. Okay. Yeah, I'm very slowly beginning to recognize people's phone numbers, but I don't do well with numbers. So
Okay.
I've renamed.
It's good you didn't decide to become a mathematician.
Yes, yes. Although surprisingly, I seem to be able to do the basic math I need to be able to do. It's just remembering the problem. The numbers are in front of me. I'm not afraid of them, but I just can't. All right, I'm going to get myself a drink of water, and then since it's 4 o'clock, I think we'll get started.
oh.
Are we never going to see you, Phyllis?
No.
Oh, my heart's broken.
Yeah, I have to use the telephone, so.
Right. Well, I was doing that too for a while because I'd hoped that this wouldn't continue. But I think that Zoom is now going to be a part of our lives for a long time.
Could be, but I don't use the computer.
Oh, I didn't realize that, Phyllis. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Jody, your plants are beautiful. Jody,
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said your plants in the background are beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's me from 1550. Yes. I also have a plant area, but yours is elegantly set up.
But you have a nice ceiling.
Yeah, right.
Oh, and
Okay,
look at your background.
I have a nice Judaica cabinet.
Oh, look at that's beautiful. Yes.
Oh,
Wow.
yes.
Uh-huh.
And
Yep.
whose garden is that, Naomi?
That's a garden that was about a month ago up on Mason Terrace. It's now all gone by. They were spring bulbs.
Ah,
And I'm just waiting every time I walk down Mason Terrace to see what they're going to do next.
oh, it's beautiful.
Mm.
But yeah, I
Beautiful.
just had to take a picture of it. I have a couple of other pictures that I may try to put up, but putting a virtual background is a real hassle.
That's lovely. I can almost smell
Yeah,
it.
beautiful.
But thank you. Yeah, I wish my garden had ever looked like that, but it never would.
I'm jealous. I wanted to put, have a virtual background, but you have to have updated equipment. I can't do it.
I put one in
A
and then I
picture.
took it out because it was
Scan
distracting.
in a picture and then you go about 5 go-rounds with Zoom. And after about the 5th go-round, Zoom takes pity on you and lets you put,
Not me, not me. They didn't take pity on me.
oh, no, it finally, I was ready to throw the computer out the window. And since I am on the 9th floor, this would not have been good.
Right.
Right, now I'm in San Francisco, so.
Hi, Connie.
You.
I wanted to
I
put the,
had one, but it, let me see. I had,
I wanted the Ferris wheel at Coney Island behind me,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh,
but it's not to be.
so I had this background,
That's not bad.
which is,
oh, look at that.
our backyard in New Hampshire. But then people said it was distracting for some reason, so I took it out.
I think it's fun.
Yeah, I think it's pretty.
I'll leave it for today.
All right, so we can get started. We have, I think if we're going to try to do the rest of the book of Ruth, it could take it, you know, we won't have that much time to discuss. So we'll do everything we can do. Don't worry about stopping me if you have something interesting that you're thinking about, or that has something that strikes your interest. So just feel free to stop us, and we will look. So we will start with chapter 2, and we will. And I think what we'll do is I'll read from the JPS translation that I have here, rather than from the old translation that's on the screen. But at least if something strikes us and we want to see the Hebrew, we will have the Hebrew on the screen for everyone but Phyllis. And Phyllis will just have to explain the Hebrew to you. All right. So Naomi had a kinsman on her husband's side, a man of substance. And actually, it's interesting. The translation on the screen is actually a literal translation. A mighty man of valor, which I like very much more than I like a man of substance.
Yeah.
Although I suppose in those days maybe it was the same thing. I don't know, but. So anyway, but an Ish Gibor Heil is pretty great. He's not just a man of valor and not just a Gibor, not just a strong man, but a mighty man of valor. He's got both. Of the family of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. Boaz, by the way, in Hebrew is Bo means in him, and Oz is the same word as Oz, which means strength. So he has strength in him. So the description of him as Ish Gibor Chayil actually, it's a pretty good description based on his. Ruth, the Moabite, said to Naomi, I would like to go to the fields and glean among the ears of grain, behind someone who may show me kindness. Yes, daughter, go, she replied, and off she went. She came and gleaned in a field behind the reapers, and as luck would have it, it was the piece of land belonging to Boaz, who was of Elimelech's family. Presently, Boaz arrived from Bethlehem. He greeted the reapers, the Lord be with you. And they responded, the Lord bless you. Boaz said to the servant who was in charge of the reapers, whose girl is that? The servant in charge of the reapers replied, she is a Moabite girl who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab. She said to us, please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the reapers. She has been on her feet ever since she came this morning. She has rested but little. No. Very, very interesting that this kind of coincidence, right? That she shows up right in the place that she needs to go, right? They say as luck have it. Let's see, how did it? And her hap was too light. Very interesting. Vayikar mikre chelkat hasadeh levoaz. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. By coincidence, or perhaps divine providence, says here the commentary. So very interesting, right? This is slightly different, right, than what we might be familiar with from Leviticus and other biblical laws, right? Where the idea is that gleaners can come after everyone else has, you're not supposed to pick up anything that falls, right? You're supposed to leave the corners of your field. This seems to be slightly different process, right? The people who are gleaning actually go into the fields along with the people who are harvesting. They know.
Rabbi,
Go ahead.
is this like tithing? I can barely hear you. They're required to leave a portion of the field for people to come and pick up what's fallen, or?
Is that like tithing a percentage of the field?
I don't think that this is the tithing. The tithing would have been for for the priests.
You're breaking up.
I can barely hear you.
And Jeannie, you're very loud for some reason. I'm not.
Okay, I know why.
Okay,
I turned it up so that I could hear you. Sorry.
got it. Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me see what I can do about me louder. Give me 1 second. And I'm gonna,
Maybe if you mute everybody,
Yeah.
that will help.
yeah, that's the first thing I'm gonna do. I'm gonna mute you right now. All right. Is that helpful at all? Of course, now you can't talk, so I have no idea if it's helpful or
Yes, I can talk.
not.
Okay,
Great.
that your voice is more clear now.
Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to keep everyone else muted. Please raise your hand or otherwise indicate. And Phyllis, I think you probably know it's *9 in order to raise your hand on your phone. Okay, so we will now continue. Okay. So no, I don't think it's a tithe. I think this is the other rule that's in Leviticus. Let me see if I can find it. Where it says Leviticus 19:9, it says, according to biblical law, the poor were permitted to walk behind the harvesters and gather the grain that they left behind, right? Because what's puzzling is that she apparently plans to work among the ears, meaning the places that haven't yet been harvested. So this is a slightly different custom. Okay. All right. Boaz said to Ruth, "Listen to me, daughter." Right. Very interesting, right? That he refers to her as daughter. Right. Hearest thou not, my daughter? Is that it says on the screen? Vayomer Boaz el Ruth halo shamat bt. Right. So automatically sort of puts a kind of familial mode into their interaction. Don't go to glean another field. Don't go elsewhere, but stay here close to my girls. Keep your eyes on the field they are reaping and follow them. I have ordered the men not to molest you. And when you are thirsty, go to the jars and drink some of the water that the men have drawn. So he's being extremely, extremely hospitable and solicitous of her. She prostrated herself with her face to the ground and said to him, "Why are you so kind to single me out when I am a foreigner?" Right. So what might be the reason that he might be doing this? Before we get to his, well, he probably will receive his response. But I have been told of all that you did for your mother-in-law after the death of your husband. How you came to your father and mother in the land of your birth and came to a people you had not known before. May the Lord reward your deeds. May you have full recompense from the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have sought refuge. Can you think of any other reasons why he might be so solicitous of her? Go ahead, Naomi. You need to unmute yourself.
I can't even find myself. I have to start all over again here.
Aye.
Sorry, but all right, I'll come back in later, but I've got to start all over again.
Okay. Start all over with your comment or start all over with?
Can you hear me at all?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. The two things I was going to say were that first, if you're gleaning in the fields, obviously you're too poor to have your own field.
Yeah.
Or have someone who will provide you with a field. So you've got to go out and find a field where you can pick stuff up. And then there's the strong implication there. Once you are a young girl in anybody's field, you're fair game for any young man who wanders through.
Yeah.
Or who is reaping or is for any other reason. And I find that interesting, to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let me see if I can actually get back
or people
into
into trouble.
Yeah.
It is actually a really. I have a question. I'm not sure it's interesting, but I do have a question about why she needs to go try to glean, which will come up when we learn 4th chapter that
Okay.
Naomi actually has a field that needs to be disposed of. So
Yeah.
I've always been kind of puzzled by if they have a field, why don't they just go and do whatever they need to do on their own field? I don't know if there's an answer to that question. I see that Dodie and Suzanne have both unmuted themselves, which leads me to think that they want to say something. So let's start.
I unmuted myself to tell you that Connie was raising her hand and
Oh,
wants to say something.
thank you.
But-
Okay.
But she's muted, so you have to
Yeah,
now.
so I'm going to unmute. Nope, Connie is now unmuted. Nope, Connie, you have to unmute yourself.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh.
I can't do it. I'm powerful, but not that powerful. Connie, if you're trying to talk, we can't hear you.
Okay, I was going to say the same
There
thing
she
about
is.
young
Okay.
people, young women being fair game. I think that Boaz first is much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Boaz is much, much older.
Yes.
That's why he calls her daughter
Mhm.
to indicate the division in age. Also, I think that she was very attractive, and that's one of the reasons that he became interested in her. He's
Yeah.
a new girl in town.
Right. Not an unreasonable,
That's it.
unreasonable reading. Okay, Dodie, go ahead.
I just want to know, can I control the text? Because I like it lifted. It's not, why not moving up?
No, you can't move it. I have to.
Oh,
so
okay.
I will
Rabbi has to scroll. Yeah.
Better, okay, thank you.
Now, Jeannie, can you move?
Yeah. Well, doesn't Boaz try to get somebody else for Ruth, maybe younger, to redeem her, but nobody else is up to it?
No one else is right. The next person in line is not interested. Go ahead, Suzanne.
It's not just anybody. There's a protocol.
Right.
Yeah.
And it tells us about the protocol in the, I think it's the fourth chapter.
Yeah,
So he doesn't try to get someone else for her. He has to go through the.
Yeah, and it's
what the law-
Right.
what
He
the
says
law-
a redeeming bond, a redeeming
Kinsman, yes.
relative. Is it?
All right, so let's continue.
Why do I only have suddenly the Hebrew?
I don't know because I have both in front of me. That is very. That I can't control, Naomi.
Yeah, suddenly I had English before this great wipeout, and now I only have, oh, well, I'll listen.
All right. Well, what I'll do is I'll stop.
Excuse me, Rabbi, could I just ask you a question?
Sure, of course.
Are we to assume that she's so special that Boaz even makes a point of telling the young men not to molest her? Why? Would the other workers be in harm's way if he hadn't said anything to them?
Well,
Probably.
I do think that's where we find interesting stuff vis-a-vis her question to him, right? Her question to him is, and I'll start sharing it again, and hopefully, Naomi, that you'll get both again when I start the share. She says to him, why have I found favor in your sight that thou shouldest take cognizance of me, seeing that I am a foreigner, right? A nochriya, right? A nochriya is not the same as a ger, right? A ger is someone who comes in and joins the community, right? And that's the word that we use today for a convert to Judaism. A convert to Judaism is a ger. A nochri or a nochriya in today's parlance, I think, is something that it might actually just be the word for Christian. And so it's very clear that she, even though she has said to Naomi, right, that I'm going to take your God and I'm going to be part of your people, she still perceives, right, that, or she still expects that the Israelites will perceive her as a nochriya, right, as someone who doesn't belong there. Right? And that's, I think, one of the powerful things about this story, right, is the degree to which Boaz, as well as Naomi, accept her. All right. So Boaz says, right, you've done all these wonderful things, right? And so you've come here, right? And very interesting in Hebrew, right? It says you've left, you've left behind your father and your mother and the land of your birth, and you came here, all right, to a person you did not know, right? This is sounding very much again like Abraham, right, and Sarah, when God tells them to go off from the land of Abraham's birth to a land that I'm going to show you, right? So that echo is definitely here. All right. And then she said, well, let me find favor in your sight, my Lord. Oh, I'm going to read from here. You are most kind, my Lord, to comfort me and to speak gently to your maidservant, though I am not so much as one of your maidservants, right? And that could be the answer to the person. One person had a question about, well, wouldn't the other maidens be in trouble also if the men were allowed to come in and bother the ladies, right? Presumably you could get away with bothering the foreign girl, but if you got in the way of the master's girls, you could get in trouble. So he's sort of putting her in that category. All right. And Boaz said to her at mealtime, come over here and partake of the meal and dip your morsel in the vinegar. I have interesting commentary here. Actually, vinegar is actually a refreshing drink of sour wine and oil. Boaz's generosity foreshadows the role he will play in providing for both Ruth and Naomi. All right. So she sat down beside the reapers. He handed her roasted grain, and she ate her fill and had some left over. When she got up again to glean, Boaz gave orders to his workers, you are not only to let her glean among the sheaves without interference, but you also must pull some stalks out of the heaps and leave them for her to glean and not scold her. So he's setting her up. Right? He's making it much easier for her than it would otherwise be. She gleaned in the field until evening, then she beat out what she had gleaned. It was about an ephah of barley, and carried it back with her to the town. When her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned, and when she also took out and gave her what she had left over after eating her fill, her mother-in-law asked her, where did you glean today? Where did you work? Blessed be the one who took such generous notice of you. So she told her mother-in-law whom she had worked with, saying, the name of the man with whom I work today is Boaz. And Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, blessed be he of the Lord, who has not failed in his kindness to the living or to the dead. For Naomi explained to her daughter-in-law, the man is related to us. He is one of our redeeming kinsmen. Ruth the Moabite said, he even told me, stay close by my workers until all my harvest is finished. And Naomi answered her daughter-in-law, Ruth, it is best, daughter, that you go out with his girls and not be annoyed in some other field. So she stayed close to the maidservants of Boaz and gleaned until the barley harvest and the wheat harvest were finished. Then she stayed at home with her mother-in-law. All right, so this is one of the reasons why the book is read at the time of Shavuot, because the gleaning begins at Passover and ends at Shavuot. So, all right. So I open the floor to any comments, thoughts. I'm trying to make this a little smaller. Yeah, go ahead, Phyllis, please. You have to unmute yourself, though.
Hello?
Yep, there you are.
Good. It worked. I'm curious. This is kind of irrelevant, but nevertheless, I'm curious about it. The reapers, the official reapers in the fields, is that considered a privilege, or how does one get to be a reaper?
That's an interesting question. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I assume that these are workers or slaves of Boaz.
I don't know, because either they would get paid by him, so or that they must get a portion of what they reap. So, because that might be part of being a member of the community, and
Right.
maybe she couldn't be a reaper because she was not really a member of the community.
Right.
But
Well,
I don't know.
No, I don't know either. That's an interesting question, but certainly, certainly she's not, even though Boaz is a kinsman, right? She's certainly not attached to his house, right?
Right,
So,
right.
so she's clearly marked as being an outsider in this context, as well as more generally in the context of Bethlehem. So yeah, it's a very interesting question. Yeah. All right. All right. So just FYI, the amount that she managed to glean in a day is according to the Bible here, is an ephah, which the commentary I have says is 2/3 of a bushel, right? Which is a lot, right? A bushel of apples, right? It would be really heavy to carry back in her skirt. Now it's okay, fine, it's 2/3 of a bushel, but still it's a big haul for a single day. And so again, there's a little bit of it's another reason why it's not clear that this story was ever intended to be read in a literal fashion. All right. And so in note, right, that even here in verse 20, right, it says, and Naomi said unto her daughter-in-law, blessed is he of the Lord, who hath not left off his kindness to the living and the dead. And Naomi said unto her that the man is nigh of kin unto us, one of our near kinsmen, right? Vatomer la Naomi, karov lanu ha'ish. That man is very close to us. Mi go'alenu hu, right? So go'el is translated here as another way of saying near, right? But in the translation I have in front of me, it's a redeeming kinsman, right? Which makes sense according to the root goel, right? Geula is redemption, right? And so if you are familiar with the synagogue service, right, the first blessing after the Shema, which is the one that contains mi chamocha, right, is called geula, redemption, right? And the end of that is, Baruch atah Adonai Ga'al Yisrael, the one who redeemed Israel. So there's additional kind of echoes of a very important Jewish context, right, of redeeming the captive, right, or redeeming, taking people out of slavery. Now, obviously, Ruth is not a slave here, but still, this idea of redemption is very important. All right. Any other thoughts about this chapter 2? Okay. All right. So chapter 3. I'll switch over to chapter 3 here. All right. Chapter 3. And Naomi, her mother-in-law, Naomi said to her daughter. Okay, so here she's daughter again, right? I must seek a home for you where you may be happy. Now there is our kinsman Boaz, whose girls you were close to. He will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor tonight. So bathe, anoint yourself, dress up, and go down to the threshing floor. But do not disclose yourself to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, note the place where he lies down, and go over and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what you are to do. She replied, I will do everything you tell me. All right. So what's Naomi's plan here?
I think we'd call it entrapment.
They call it a what?
Entrapment.
I would say that's the mean way of putting it. Yeah, go ahead, Suzanne.
We call it a shidduch.
A shidduch, right? A shidduch. So those of you who are not familiar with that,
That's a nice way of putting it.
if you're not familiar with that word, shidduch means it's a match, based like a shadchanut, the matchmaker. You know, like in Fiddler on the Roof, right? Matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match, right? So Naomi is playing matchmaker, right? But she's doing it. Shall we say? There's a bit of a ribald quality to this, right? Where it's a rather direct form of suggesting to Boaz that Ruth might be a marriageable partner. Phyllis, you're unmuted. Does that mean you'd like to say something?
No, no, I'll mute myself.
Yeah, great, that's fine.
I just unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
I can, Dodi, yes.
Yeah. Well, suddenly I see Naomi in a different light. She's so manipulative and telling this girl to, and she's not a girl really. Ruth has been married.
Right.
Telling her how to behave in order to, entrap this man. And tell me what it means to uncover his feet. And how does she know that he's going to, is this a routine that she knows he's going to say the right things to her? I mean, are these naive questions?
No, they're not naive at all. I mean, it's very interesting, right? It's not unheard of that that feet are a euphemism for male genitals. So it's quite possible. On the other hand, she just says uncover them. She doesn't say do anything. Or maybe I guess because he's going to tell her what to do. Yeah, go ahead, Suzanne.
I think that it's not so forward or whatever was said. It's that Naomi knows the ways of the community, and
Yeah.
Ruth doesn't. So she's just teaching her what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I mean, and right. Maybe the way of women approaching men or vice versa in Moab was very different than this. And this is what she needs to do. But it is quite possible that that Naomi had sort of figured that because Ruth had been spending so much time with Boaz's girls and presumably also with Boaz, that Boaz would have gotten a hint already, and it was time to, and so maybe this is sort of, just sort of speed the plow a little bit. But who knows? But so let's see. So what does she do? All right.
Well, it looks like Connie wants to say something.
Oh, great, Connie, go ahead.
But she has to unmute herself.
Yeah, because I don't think I can do it. Yeah, Connie, your machine is not letting me unmute you, so you have to do it yourself. There.
Okay, I think we can't really judge what's happening by our own standards, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It was foretold that since he was a relative, that this should take place, rather than any of the other men that were younger men that were around. Also, I read that it's a custom among the Arabs that to put a shawl over the man's feet would be an invitation itself to marriage.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So yeah, I mean, I don't, first of all,
to cover her, for him to cover her.
Most of you are of a different generation than for me, but I just remember the standards of my generation are nothing to sort of try to lord over anyone else in terms of courtship. So I think but I do think that I think that the point here is less about being forward, right, and more about being frank that sexuality and procreation are at the heart of this book, right? That big problem that Ruth and Naomi have is that that Ruth doesn't have any children, right? And so you can't have children
Right.
without sexuality. So that's just it's part and parcel.
Right.
All right, so go ahead, Naomi. You have your hand up. Yeah.
I think, yeah, I was going to say, yeah, I have my own translation since you still got the Hebrew up. And it gets very interesting as you get further along in
Yes.
this particular book. It
Right.
gets extremely interesting.
Yes. So, right. So from verse, so she says, I'm going to do everything that you tell me to do, right? But she doesn't exactly. And I think this is interesting. So she went down to the threshing floor and did just as her mother-in-law had instructed. Boaz ate and drank. It's old. No, just scrape off the top. Boaz ate and drank, and in a cheerful mood went to lie down beside the grain pile. Then she went over stealthily and uncovered his feet and lay down. In the middle of the night, the man gave a start and pulled back. There was a woman lying at her feet. Who are you? He asked, and she replied, I'm your handmaid Ruth. Spread your robe over your handmaid, for you are a redeeming kinsman. All right. So very interesting, right? So very interesting that according to verse 6, right? She didn't do everything that her mother-in-law told her to until she got to the threshing floor. Right? She went first and then did all this thing that she did, right? Getting dressed up and bathing and all that kind of stuff. All right. All right. So what do you make of this verse 8? How does it translate it here? Push this up. And it came to pass at midnight that the man was startled and turned himself, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. And he said, who art thou? Right. All right. So this idea of spreading a robe over your handmaid clearly is an invitation to marry her, right?
Yeah.
And the information which he presumably would have known, and this is also kind of interesting. Presumably, he would have known as well as Naomi and Ruth that he was a redeeming kinsman. So very interesting. Think about if that were the case, why hadn't he sort of moved on this without her invitation?
Keep going.
I'm sorry?
Keep going.
Okay, we want to do a little, okay. Yes, so, all right, so one answer, right, could be what we have in verse 10, right? He exclaimed, be blessed of the Lord, daughter, your latest deed of loyalty is greater than the first, in that you have not turned to younger men, whether poor or rich. And now, daughter, have no fear. I will do in your behalf whatever you ask, for all the elders of my town know what a fine woman you are. So one reason, right, might be that he thought that he's too old, right?
Yeah.
And that she's not going to want him.
Mhm.
And so it's not going to come to that, right? And then we'll get to the business. So, but might there be other reasons why it took this?
Do we
Well-
really know that Ruth wants him? She's just following her mother-in-law's advice and instructions.
Yeah.
Have I missed something that she was attracted to Boaz, the older man, and his kindness or something? I mean,
That's,
I
suddenly,
don't think so. I don't think so.
okay, all right.
Go ahead, Naomi.
well, in that time and place, whether you were attracted to somebody or not, issue. The issue was that as a strange, single, widowed woman in that culture, you needed to find a protector. And that is what Naomi is trying to do. She is trying to get Ruth a protector.
Suzanne, did you want to add something?
Just that Boaz just needed a little push and Naomi gave it to him.
Exactly. Yeah, I like that. Jeannie, do you want to say
Little,
something?
little,
I guess I was going to say pretty much what Naomi said, that attraction, someone asked, is Ruth attracted to Boaz? I don't think that is an issue. Women don't get much to say, and their predilections don't seem to matter very much in these stories.
Yeah, it is an interesting question. The one piece of evidence that we have about that, right, is that Rebecca gets to decide if she's going to go back with Abraham's servant to marry Isaac sight unseen. She says that she will. So there is some indication that girls were not always married against their will, but I would still agree, right, that sexual attraction is not paramount.
Not for the woman.
Yeah.
Or for the man either.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking of David, for example.
Yeah. But in this case, right, we have this situation, right, where there's a frankly sexual experience, and that what's interesting about the commentary that I have here, right, is that it says that Boaz was unsure whether or not he had intercourse with Ruth, right? And so that his shock is because, and this might be all part of Naomi's plan, right, which is that we're gonna go sort of go to Boaz on a night when we know he's going to be drunk. We know he's not necessarily going to be sure of what he was doing. And so, if we put a woman next to him, maybe in fact, I've already had intercourse with her, so now I have to marry her. I don't know. Go ahead, Naomi.
The translation that I had is a little different here. It says, "And now, my daughter, fear not, I will do to thee all that thou sayest, for all the men in the gate of my people do know that thou art a virtuous woman."
Yes.
So he has to give everybody some reassurance that she's fine and pure.
Yes. Let me just look at the virtuous woman business here. See, the issue here with virtue is this is not virtue in the English sense, right? Of a sexually pure or whatever, whatever that means. This is an Eshet Chayil, right? That she is an Eshet Chayil. She is a woman of valor, right? That she is a virtuous woman in a much broader sense, right? That she's kind, right? That she's loyal. She acts with justice, all that kind of thing. So, okay, so
Rabbi, but also this is about the Levirate law, right? About carrying on her husband's name.
Right.
In her children.
Exactly.
So she can't have children with just anyone.
Yes, although that is already a little bit fuzzy because of the structure of this family, right? It's not the person who is actually needs the levirate marriage would be Naomi, right? Because she was the one that was left with, her husband was left without an heir.
But still,
yeah, it's right.
It has to be somebody in this family,
right,
related to Elimelech, right?
Exactly.
And Rabbi,
yes,
we know that he was a kind and generous soul.
Yes.
If he were anybody else, she just might not have gone through with this.
Right.
But that he was attractive in that respect.
Right. I mean, and again, people are attracted to people.
And he will also be kind to her mother-in-law.
Absolutely.
She felt.
I mean, kindness is a very attractive, it's very attractive. Yeah, go ahead, Naomi.
It suddenly strikes me that Naomi is not going back to her original family. Her original family, once she married Elimelech, has no further responsibility towards her. Yeah, I just find that an interesting anthropological idea.
Right, and it could be, right, it could be because she
when
did
they're back in Bethlehem.
Children, right, she did have children, and so she's not a childless widow.
Ah,
She's a, you know, she's a mother whose kids have died. So that might be a different.
ah, yeah.
All right, so let's continue. And now have no fear. I will do in your behalf and whatever you ask, for all the elders of my town know what a fine woman you are. But while it is true that I am a redeeming kinsman, there is another redeemer closer than I. Right? We never learn who that person is, right? But it is interesting. Stay for the night. Then in the morning, if he will act as redeemer, good, let him redeem. But if he does not want to act as redeemer for you, I will do so myself. As the Lord lives, lie down until the morning. Okay. So he has a plan. And so this is interesting. It strikes me that it's quite possible that the reason that he didn't sort of initiate the process, right, of trying to make the redemption happen was because he knew that there was this other redeemer, and he, for whatever reason, figured maybe they'd be better off just with him as a benefactor than they would be with a redeemer who was not going to be kind to them. All right. So she lay at his feet until dawn. She rose before one person could distinguish another, for he thought, let it not be known that a woman came to the threshing floor. All right. Very interesting, right? It's male space, right? And that is a common sort of biblical and also Talmudic mode of talking about levels of darkness, right? When you can't distinguish one person from another, right? When you can't distinguish colors from one another, right? That's a level, the degree of darkness. He said to her, hold out the shawl you are wearing. She held it while he measured out 6 measures of barley, and he put it on her back. This is an impossible amount of barley. When she got back to town, I'm sorry? When she got back to town, she came to her mother-in-law, who asked, how is it with you, daughter? I love that. Let's see. Vatavo el chamota vatomer mi'at biti, which literally is, who are you, my daughter? Right? I mean, sort of, are you still just Ruth, or are you Ruth, Boaz's wife? And she told her all that the man had done for her. And she added, he gave me these 6 measures of barley, saying to me, do not go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed. And Naomi said, stay here, daughter, till you learn how the matter turns out. For the man will not rest, but will settle the matter today. So very interesting to me, right, that the first chapter, sort of moves very quickly, right, through the lives. And then we sort of stop for this very important moment where Ruth and Orpah make the decision. Are they going back with Naomi, or are they going to return to their families, right? And then in the second chapter, right, we have this long scene of Ruth being in the fields, right? But then we have 7 weeks go by really, really quickly, right? And then we slow down again for one night and the next day, right? So just the degree to which the narrator is able to kind of change speeds of his narration is pretty amazing. All right. So meanwhile, Boaz had gone to the gate and sat down there. And now the Redeemer whom Boaz had mentioned passed by, and he said, come on over here and sit down, you old so-and-so. And that is actually pretty literal. In Hebrew, I'll put it to chapter 4, I apologize. In Hebrew, it's Ploni Almoni. Ploni Almoni is John Doe in Hebrew. John Doe throughout in the Talmud as well. So come over here and sit down, Ploni Almoni. And he came over and sat down. And Boaz took 10 elders of the town and said, be seated here. And they sat down. So this is one of the places according to my commentary, where we get the idea that we need a minion for certain things, right? A quorum. He said to the Redeemer, now this is why it's a weird, this is why it doesn't entirely fit, Jeannie, into the levirate marriage as described in the Torah. He said to the Redeemer, Naomi, now returned from the country of Moab, must sell the piece of land which belonged to our kinsman Elimelech, which raised the question that I mentioned before. Like, if they have a piece of land, why is she going out and living in other people's land? I thought I should disclose the matter to you and say, acquired in the presence of those seated here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you are willing to redeem it, redeem. But if you will not redeem, tell me that I may know, for there is no one to redeem it but you, and I come after you. I am willing to redeem it, he replied. And Boaz continued, when you acquire the property from Naomi, there's a poison pill here, just know, right? And from Ruth the Moabite, oops, you must also acquire the wife of the deceased, right? Very interesting. Who is the wife of the deceased?
Ruth.
No, right? It's the deceased is Elimelech. So the deceased is Naomi. So that's why this is this very strange.
Yes.
Right?
But you have three deceased. You have Elimelech, and the two sons are also deceased.
Exactly. Yeah. But the Orpah is not in the picture. So so I don't know, the legal niceties of this, I think, are less important than the story, right? That clearly we're talking about Ruth here. We're not talking about Naomi being
because her son would have been, because Elimelech's son would have inherited the property.
Right, exactly.
And therefore.
Right.
But you say it's not levirate, but is it not sort of levirate with one generation removed or something?
Right. Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
All right.
We got the shoe in here someplace.
I'm sorry?
We got the shoe in here someplace.
Yeah, we definitely get the shoe. Best part of the levirate marriage thing, right? All right. So as to perpetuate the name of the deceased upon his estate. The Redeemer replied, then I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I impair my own estate. Levirate marriage was seen like a really bad deal for the Redeemer. Right? Land, that's great. I'll take the land. But oh wait, a wife? And the first kid is belongs to the dead husband. I don't think it's such a great deal. You take over my right of redemption, for I am unable to exercise it. So now this was formally done in Israel in cases of redemption or exchange to validate any transaction. This is interesting, right? Not just the levirate marriage, but it says here to validate any transaction, one man would take off his sandal and hand it to the other. Such was the practice in Israel. So when the Redeemer said to Boaz, acquire it for yourself, he drew off his sandal. All right, now what's very interesting, right? I'll read it in Hebrew. Vayomer hagoel levoaz kenelach. Right? Buy it your own self. Vayishlof na'alo. Right? So the clause, and he drew off his shoe, right? It's not clear what the antecedent is.
When you read the Hebrew, would you be able to point to it?
Yes.
I mean, I see it now, but in general, if you could point to it, it would be helpful.
Sure. Here it is now, right?
Yeah, I see it now. Thank you.
All right. So it's not clear in the Hebrew, and the translation, both of the translations are good about following it that way, right? It's not clear who took off the shoe, right? And it's not clear at all from verse 7 which party is supposed to take off the shoe.
Here, this makes it clearer. This makes it the near kin.
In Sonsino, they suggest it's Boaz's shoe.
Yes, right.
Oh,
right.
It's not.
Actually, that's interesting. So Sonsino claims that it's Boaz's shoe.
Yeah.
No, this makes it clear that it's this translation makes it clear that it's the guy who just bailed.
Right. Oh, yes. Okay. Right. Because all right. So that makes sense because I'm sorry, I misheard you the first time, Connie. In this translation, in this commentary here, it says that Ruth Rabbah, meaning that the midrash on Ruth opts to say that it was that Boaz gave the shoe on the principle that it is the purchaser who gives the pledge.
No.
Uh, so modern interpreters generally prefer the former. In their view, the act symbolizes the fact that Ploni Almoni relinquishes the obligation and the privilege of redeeming the land and marrying Ruth.
Yeah.
It's not really clear. All right. So, and Boaz said to the elders and to the rest of the people, "You are witnesses today that I am acquiring from Naomi all that belonged to Elimelech and all that belonged to Chilion and Machlon. I'm also acquiring Ruth the Moabite, the wife of Machlon, as my wife, so as to perpetuate the name of the deceased upon his estate, that the name of the deceased may not disappear from among his kinsmen and from the gate of his hometown. You are witnesses today." All the people at the gate and the elders answered, "We are." Hold on, sorry, everybody. We are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, both of whom built up the house of Israel proper, right? We talk about a welcoming committee, right? Not only are we going to welcome you, right, into the family and into the town, right? We are going to give you the blessing of being like Rachel and Leah.
Any formal commitment.
Prosper in Ephrathah and perpetuate your name in Bethlehem. And may your house be like the house of Peretz, whom Tamar bore to Judah. Right? Very interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Through the offspring which the Lord will give you by this young woman. Right? So fascinating, right? That it makes these two blessings, right? To be like Rachel and Leah, right? The matriarchs, but then also to be like Tamar, right? Who is another non-Israelite woman who has, in her case, she actually does have illicit sex with Judah, right? And that provides Judah with the heir, Peretz, right? Who becomes the progenitor of the house of David. All right. So very interesting. And this whole Levirate thing, right? We'll see in a minute, right? This whole Levirate thing is very quickly ignored, right? They make a big deal of this guy's name is not going to be lost to Israel, right? But we'll see soon, right, that Boaz, unlike other Levirate husbands, Boaz is seen as the father of the child that comes along. All right. So Boaz married Ruth. She became his wife, and he cohabited with her. The Lord let her conceive, and she bore a son. And the women said to Naomi, "Blessed be the Lord, who has not withheld the Redeemer from you today. May his name be perpetuated in Israel. He will renew your life and sustain your old age, for he is born of your daughter-in-law, who loves you and is better to you than 7 sons." Pretty remarkable, right? Pretty remarkable praise for a daughter-in-law.
Shiksayet.
Say again?
A shiksayet.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Just like Tamar. Right? So Naomi took their child and held it to her bosom, right? And became its foster mother. All right. So this is from sort of modern translation practice, right, where you try to make sense of it, right? But he lo omenet, right? Becoming a nurse to it, especially in the case of a wet nurse, probably not. But certainly there was a close relationship. It seems to be between grandmother and grandson. And the women neighbors gave him a name, saying, "A son is born to Naomi." They named him Abied. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. And this is the line of Peretz, right? Peretz, who was the son of Judah, right? Peretz begot Hetzron, Hetzron begot Ram, Ram begot Aminadav, Aminadav begot Nachshon, Nachshon begot Salmon, Salmon begot Boaz, Boaz begot Abied, and Abied begot Jesse, and Jesse begot David. So we are actually all set up now for for the book of Samuel, right? Where this is in the Christian Bible. I think I mentioned this last week, right? In the Christian Bible, this is this little story of Ruth precedes precedes the book of Samuel, so that because it kind of is a kind of sets up it kind of sets up David's line. All right, so final thoughts. We have just a few seconds. We're almost at time. So final thoughts, any ideas?
Well, has this been used to discuss, shall we say, the role of a non-Jewish woman in a culture where maternal descent is defining?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, it certainly is used. It's certainly used that way, you know, sort of in modern times. You know, whether you know to the degree to which the rabbis used it, I don't know I don't know the answer to that question. It would be really interesting to.
Was Moses not also married to a Moabite? Was it Zipporah?
Right? I mean, in the Bible, it's. I mean, I think the issue is that in the Bible, Bible, right? It's not matrilineal, right? Descent is patrilineal in the Bible. It's only in the rabbinic period that shifts, and so it would be again. It's not clear that the rabbis would spend a lot of time on it because it would not necessarily, it might not, you know, meet their needs rhetorically. So, but I don't know. It would be worth looking at. Jeannie, please.
Where did we get the custom among Jews that the mother determines whether someone is Jewish or not? For the Arabs, it's the father. We have all these women, Tamar and Ruth. I'm thinking of the harlot in Jericho.
Yeah.
First of all, is it only women? It seems to be only women that are outsiders that are accepted in. Are there any men? And then, you know, what about the fact that it's the mother that determines one's lineage rather than the father?
Again, I think, you know, in the Bible, it's just like the Arab practice, right? But which is the practice of most cultures. And you know why it's specifically the women. That's a very interesting question. We could definitely go into it. Probably don't have the time for it right now, but you know the on one foot version, right, is basically that we generally know who the mother of a child is. We don't always know who the father is. And so that became increasingly important in a Jewish context, and we can discuss the reasons at another time. Go ahead, Naomi.
Right. No, we won't go into the reasons, but there are all those things about women taken in battle and then redeemed.
Right.
So if you are a Jewish woman taken in battle by a Philistine, and suddenly you are pregnant, and then suddenly the Philippines lose the next battle and you're back again. Fine, you know, the kid is Jewish.
So, yeah, there's a lot of different.
Sorry, I'm being cynical.
No, but there's a lot of different and interesting reasons, right? And also, I mean, I think that the other reason, right, to be honest, right, is that you know, this is just completely speculation on my part, right? Is that with such an emphasis, right, on endogamous marriage, right? And the rabbis also made the process of increasingly made the process of conversion complicated. That I think there was always a consciousness that there was a way, there needed to be ways for people to become Jewish who weren't Jewish. But who knows? Interesting question. All right, so to be continued. We will revert back
Rabbi,
to Joshua next week. Any
Rabbi,
last thoughts? Yeah, go ahead, Connie.
I read an interesting commentary
Great.
on Elimelech.
Okay.
Commentary really ranks him out. He was a man of stature and wealth, and he took to leaving his country that was in the midst of a famine where he could have stayed and helped, since he could, a leader. And where does he go? He goes to the land of the enemy.
Yep.
Where he dies.
Right.
That's all.
Right. And it is interesting, right, that it's, his, in the end, his line actually is excised, right?
Yes.
At the beginning of the book, it would seem like this book is going to be about Elimelech. By the end, Elimelech's name and his son's names are not included in the genealogy. They are effectively.
Yeah. Right.
All right.
They sort of disappeared.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I got to run, and I will.
Thank you.
See you all soon. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
The Rebbe Elimelech is an old song. Well, never
Yeah,
mind.
absolutely. But
Okay.
but even people with not stellar careers in the Bible can be popular baby names.
Yeah.
All right. I'll see you all soon.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.